Hello, my name is Blake Miner, and I'm an inmate in Folsom State Prison, California. Before now, I was an engineer and I work with Mountain Camel Constructions. What I'm about to share may sound unbelievable, but it's the truth, as I experienced it last winter. I had a near-death experience that changed everything for me. It wasn't just an out-of-body moment. It was a journey that opened my eyes to the spiritual truths about life, death, and what's coming in May 2025. I was shown things by Jesus that filled me with awe and fear. What I saw wasn't just for me, it's a message for all of us. Let me take you through this incredible journey. It all started on a bitterly cold morning. I remember waking up early to check on the cattle. The frost was biting and the air smelled of damp earth. I had been feeling under the weather for a while, but being a farmer, I was used to pushing through that morning as I bent down to fix a broken fence. I felt an unbearable pain in my chest. My vision blurred, and before I knew it, I was on the ground, unable to move or call for help. Everything went dark, and I thought, this is it. But then something strange happened. I wasn't cold anymore. Whether I was standing, but not in my body, it was as if I had stepped out of myself, leaving my suffering and worldly concerns behind. I looked down and saw myself lying motionless as the cattle milled around me. I felt completely at peace, without fear or regret, and suddenly I saw a light in the distance. It wasn't the sun's harsh glare or the gentle glow of a lantern. It was alive, pulsing with love and warmth. I felt my spirit being drawn toward it, and as I got closer, the world around me faded and was replaced by a vast expanse of golden light. As I stood there, I started to hear whispers, not the kind you hear with your ears, but with your soul, that spoke of love, hope, and forgiveness. It was as though all the truths I had ever sought were being poured into me. Crossing that veil felt like entering a world where time didn't exist and everything was perfect. A figure appeared out of the golden light. He wasn't like the statues or paintings I had seen in churches, but his presence was both reassuring and overwhelming. I had no idea what was waiting on the other side of the light, but I knew it was something remarkable. And I knew it was Jesus because of the love that radiated from him, a love so pure and powerful that it brought me to my knees. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. He said my name, Blake, and his voice was not loud, but it filled the room and resonated in every part of me. He extended his hand, and as I accepted it, a wave of emotion swept over me. I felt every error, every hurt, and every regret, but instead of condemnation, I felt forgiveness. It wasn't simply a sound. Jesus assured me that although my earthly life was not yet done, he had some things he wanted to teach me before I left. Blake guided me farther into the light by saying, "What you see now is not to frighten you, but to prepare you. Share this with others because they need to know what's coming with that." Jesus' first vision of the United States was not of the country I knew, although the land, mountains, rivers, and plains looked the same, but the people were different. There was a sense of heaviness and tension in the air, and I saw cities where people walked like strangers, as if everyone was waiting for something to happen. Jesus showed me the cracks forming in the nation, not physical cracks, but spiritual ones. Families were divided, communities were fractured, and trust was eroding. It was as if the soul of the nation was under attack, but amidst the darkness I saw pockets of light, people coming together, holding hands and praying. These were the ones who still believed in love, hope, and the power of faith. According to Jesus, 2025 would be a year of reckoning, when people would have to face their decisions. He said that while it wouldn't be simple, it was essential. Joe JPH reassures them that their faith would be their bulwark during the storm, and that they should not be afraid. Jesus then demonstrated to me the peril of division. I can't take watching pictures of people fighting over politics, religion, and even seemingly insignificant issues. The differences weren't merely based on viewpoints, they were also based on hearts. People no longer saw one another as brothers and sisters, but rather as adversaries. Jesus explained to me that the enemy used these divisions to prevent people from coming together in love and faith in one vision. I witnessed a tiny town where people from all walks of life came together during a crisis, putting their differences aside and just caring about supporting one another. Unity produced a light so bright that it drove the darkness away. Blake advised them to choose unity over division and love over hate, because only by working together would they be able to endure what lies ahead in a different vision. I witnessed the earth itself screaming out. There were earthquakes, hurricanes, and wildfires, not sporadic occurrences, but indicators that the globe was out of balance. It was terrifying to see cities engulfed in water, forests engulfed in flames, and people fleeing in terror. But Jesus stood by my side, calm and steady. He explained that these were wake-up calls rather than punishments, explaining that the natural world reflects the state of our spirits, and that when we are out of harmony, so is the earth. However, he also demonstrated to me that healing was possible in a single image. When I witnessed people reviving barren areas by planting trees, cleaning rivers, and taking care of the land, Blake remarked, "Tell them to take care of the gift, and its healing is tied to." Jesus' next vision for me included the economy, but it was about values rather than just money. In the midst of the chaos, Jesus showed me something amazing, a rebirth. I saw busy city skyscrapers and trading flows full of energy and noise, but then literal cracks began to form in the buildings, symbolic of something deeper. People were panicking as they watched their wealth evaporate as the financial systems they trusted collapsed. It wasn't a single event. Rather, it happened gradually, like a dam breaking, bit by bit. Families struggled to make ends meet, and businesses closed their doors. Jesus said that the old ways will fall apart because they are based on sand. What rises next must be built on rock, truth, love, and justice. He also explained that the economic challenges of 2025 would test humanity's priorities. Would we cling to the past or embrace a future rooted in kindness and mutual respect? I witnessed people bartering goods, communities pooling resources, and individuals helping one another without expecting anything in return. Abundance comes not from hoarding, but from sharing. As we moved through the light, Jesus showed me another vision. It was of people glowing, not physically, but spiritually. These were the chosen individuals who had awakened to a higher purpose. They weren't necessarily wealthy or famous. They were ordinary people with extraordinary faith. I saw them in every corner of the United States. Teachers, farmers, doctors, students, each shine in their light in the darkness. These chosen ones were not perfect. They had their struggles, but they had something others lacked, a deep connection to God. They prayed, meditated, and lived with intention. Their actions inspired others to seek the same peace and clarity. Jesus showed me how important the chosen role would be in 2025, saying that their faith would be the anchor for many, and that they would help others navigate the storm, not just in churches, but also in homes, parks, and even online. People came together to share their stories of awakening and to support one another's spiritual development. Blake answered, "Tell them that if they open their hearts, every soul can be chosen." I didn't anticipate. At first, it seemed like a marvel of progress, with people connected in ways I never would have thought possible, and tasks becoming easier and faster. But Jesus showed me the darker side of a world increasingly dominated by technology. There were screens everywhere, machines that could think, and robots doing tasks that were previously completed by humans. I witnessed people becoming enslaved to their gadgets and losing touch with one another and the outside world. There were ethical arguments about whether machines should take the place of people and whether artificial intelligence could make life or meth decisions. But it was obvious that our use of technology, not the technology itself, was the issue. Blake, as a farmer, I've always believed in planting seeds for the future, and Jesus showed me that in 2025, the youth would be those seeds. Jesus said that technology is a gift, but it can also be a trap. He told them to use it wisely to uplift and not destroy. He gave me examples of how technology is being used for good, such as robots helping the disabled, apps teaching kindness, and virtual spaces fostering playgrounds and classrooms where kids and teens were bursting with enthusiasm, inventiveness, and resolve. They weren't burdened by the anxieties of the elder generations. Instead, they saw obstacles as opportunities. But there was a warning. Jesus demonstrated to me how the world surrounding young people could have both positive and terrible effects. Peer pressure, social media, and a lack of direction may lead some of them down dangerous pathways, but he also showed me how young leaders could speak out against injustice and inspire change. According to Blake, young people are tomorrow's hope. Foster them, mentor them, and have faith in their abilities. I observed communities developing initiatives to mentor youth, instilling in them the qualities of empathy, accountability, and fortitude. Jesus went on to say that the nation's strength rests with its children. In his next vision, he showed me the earth itself, showing me bare forests, polluted oceans, and smog-choked skies. It was devastating to watch the beauty of creation being destroyed, but he also showed me something even more potent: the Earth's resilience. Clean once more, trees sprouting where wastelands once existed, and animals returning to their natural habitats. This healing wasn't a coincidence. It was the outcome of human action, and people realized that protecting the environment wasn't a choice, it was a must. Farmers adopted sustainable practices, towns adopted green technologies, and people made minor adjustments that had a significant impact. As I stood in awe of this vision, Jesus added, "Blake, the earth is my gift to them, but they must cherish it. Tell them that healing the planet begins with healing their hearts." He also showed me how acts of kindness, like planting a tree, cleaning up a beach, or even reducing waste, had ripple effects that went far beyond the physical. This was a powerful reminder that our connection to nature is a reflection of our connection to God and each other. As I continued walking with Jesus, he showed me a troubling vision in which he showed me a group of people standing on platforms preaching to large crowds. Their voices were confident and convincing at first glance, giving the impression that they were spiritual leaders. But when Jesus put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Look closer, Blake," I saw a different image. These leaders weren't bringing the truth to the masses. Instead, they were creating confusion with their words, which were laced with half-truths and manipulations meant to manipulate rather than inspire the masses, who were desperate for hope. Jesus said that false prophets would emerge, Blake, and that they would put on the guise of faith but act contrary to it. He demonstrated to me how these false prophets would take advantage of people's anxieties by utilizing the difficulties of 2025 to increase their power, but there were ways to know their genuine motivations. In a different scene, Jesus told them to watch for humility, passion, and truth, because people who serve my name serve others before themselves. Their deeds, not their words, show their hearts. I witnessed people standing firmly against these lies. They sought wisdom, prayed for clarity, and consulted the Bible for direction. Jesus stressed the value of having a personal relationship with God and urged people to trust their inner strength, saying that Blake's faith is the armor they need because it will enable them so they can use discernment instead of mindlessly adhering to anyone claiming authority. The next vision gave me hope because, as Blake said, "For the truth will always outshine the false." Jesus showed me scenes of hardship, including people losing their homes to floods, families dealing with illness, and entire towns struggling with scarcity. But in the midst of these trials, something beautiful and compassionate appeared. I saw neighbors helping neighbors, strangers opening their doors to those in need, and communities coming together like never before. One image in particular stood out. A woman who had lost everything in a storm was embraced by her neighbors, who shared food, provided her with a temporary shelter, and remained by her side until she recovered. Blake, Jesus said, he clarified that the difficulties of 2025 would put people's capacity to care for one another to the test, saying that compassion is what unites humanity. Blake demonstrated to me via simple deeds of kindness that resilience is found in togetherness rather than in isolation. Hope was sparked by a man fixing a stranger's fence and a child sharing their last piece of bread. Jesus stressed when they work together, they create light in the darkest times. Tell them to hold each other up, for no one can face the storms of life alone. He also warned against selfishness, saying, "Those who turn inward, hoarding for themselves, will find only emptiness, but those who give freely will never lack in the next." Vision. Jesus showed a room filled with light. In the center were people kneeling in prayer, their eyes closed, their hands clasped. Surrounding them was a sense of peace, so profound it seemed to vibrate through the air. Jesus turned to me and said, "Blake, this is where true strength lies." He explained that prayer and meditation are not just rituals, but lifelines connecting people to God. Tell them, Blake, that through prayer, they open their hearts to my guidance. In meditation, they hear my voice. He showed me people who had lost everything, finding solace and direction through these practices. Their circumstances hadn't changed, but their spirits had. They were calm, hopeful, and resilient. Jesus also demonstrated the transformational potential of group prayer as I witnessed people coming together in parks, homes, and even raising their voices. Jesus says they multiply their strength, and tell them that prayer is not only for asking, but also for listening and aligning their will with mine. He also encourages meditation, saying that in the stillness they will find clarity, and that the world's noise drowns out my whispers, but in silence they will hear me. The light around them grew brighter with each word, pushing back the darkness. He encouraged individuals to establish regular prayer and meditation routines, even if they are only for a short while. Blake explained to them that this is how they prepare their spirits for the next. Jesus showed me folks going about their normal lives while surrounded by signals and synchronicity in a subtle yet potent vision. Just as she prayed for a sign that her husband was at peace, a mourning widow discovered a white feather on her window ledge. A man who was doubting himself witnessed a rainbow during a storm, reminding him of God's promises. "I am constantly speaking to them, but many do not listen," Jesus said, Blake, "and these signs are my way of reaching their hearts." He demonstrated to me how the numbers 111, 44, 777, and objects like coins instruct them to focus. In addition to revealing that these indicators are not coincidences, Blake also said that as more individuals look for spiritual connections in 2025, synchronicities will become increasingly frequent. Blake, the veil between worlds is thin, and they must trust their intuition because I speak through their hearts. Jesus urged people to keep journals in which they record the signs they receive and consider their significance. When they recognize my signs, their faith in the series' ultimate vision is strengthened. Jesus showed me a guy who was troubled by guilt. He walked slowly, and his shoulders drooped as he carried a huge load on his back that was packed with stones that symbolized all of his past transgressions. When Jesus approached him and lightly touched the sack, it vanished, and the man stood up straight, relief shining in his face. He showed me people making amends, parents embracing strange children, friends apologizing after years of silence, and even people forgiving themselves. Jesus said that forgiveness is the greatest gift people can give themselves, and others tell them to let go of the past. Me to share this message, saying that Blake told them that forgiveness is the key to freedom. They cannot change the past, but through forgiveness, they can transform their future. As I watched the vision, I felt my own burdens lift, realizing that forgiveness is a gift we all have the power to give. Chaluz Chin say, Jesus showed me a vision of the United States, which could not be the divided, struggling nation I had seen earlier, but rather a shining example of what humanity could achieve, he said. That forgiveness is not weakness, but strength. Blake, this nation was founded on the principles of freedom, hope, and faith. It has the potential to be a beacon of light for the world. In the vision I saw, Americans united by their common values, rather than divided by their differences, working together to rebuild what had been lost. Faith leaders from all denominations joined together in prayer, leading their flocks with humility and love. This unity inspired other nations to follow suit, creating a ripple effect around the world. But Jesus, that lie ahead, Blake, he clarified that the nation's spiritual and political leadership would be crucial in determining its course, and he advised them to select leaders who embody my teachings rather than their own ambitions. The United States is at a crossroads. It can either lead in compassion and faith or falter in fear and greed. In this vision, I saw a storm, a fierce, unrelenting force that seemed to tear through everything in its path. People were terrified, running for shelter and clutching their loved ones. But in the midst of the chaos, there were others who stood firm. These individuals weren't untouchable by the storm, but they weren't overwhelmed by it either. They held hands, prayed, and fought the winds together. Jesus said, Blake, fear is the enemy's greatest weapon, but faith is the strongest shield. The United States could fulfill its destiny as a global beacon of hope, but only if its citizens embraced faith conquering fear, such as families rebuilding after disasters, communities sharing being given a second chance, not just to live, but to live with purpose. Isasha said, Blake, your story will inspire others. Share it boldly and without fear. My wife, Mary, was standing over me, crying as she called for help, and the cold ground where I had fallen had disappeared, replaced by an odd, comforting warmth. He said, Tell them what you have seen and trust that I will guide them. As I returned to my body, I felt a profound sense of gratitude, not only for my life, but also for the chance to share this message. People's faces lit up with hope as I spoke. Some were doubtful, others were unsure, but many were moved to seek their own connection with God because the truth will resonate in their hearts. The last vision Jesus showed me was one of preparation, and even though I knew it would not be easy, I also knew it was my call. I encountered people from a variety of backgrounds. When farmers, educators, workers, and leaders gathered to talk about how they could deal with the difficulties of 2025, they weren't merely talking, they were acting. Gardens created shelters and united in prayer, creating a potent emphasized the importance of spiritual preparation, telling them to strengthen their faith, pray every day, and seek my guidance in everything they do. He cautioned against complacency, saying that the challenges will be great, but that those who prepare will not only survive but thrive. He urged people to focus on what really matters, love, faith, and community, rather than material possessions. He told them to prepare not out of fear but out of faith, as preparation is an act of trust and a way of saying we believe in a better tomorrow. Blake, in the dying moments of my voyage, the treasures of the earth will fade, but the treasures of the Spirit will endure forever. When Jesus showed me a picture of the world, it was beautiful, even though it wasn't perfect. Families worked together to rebuild their homes. Children laughed unrestrained, and communities flourished. The earth's rivers ran clear, and its forests were lush, and the scars were healing.